For me, I want my legacy to have meaning and purpose. I was blown away by the script. No, we need to be a bit more smart. And that is where the producing part came in.
Miss Grace.
Hey.
Hey. No, good to chat to you finally. And, we have to start by congratulating you because you've been flying the flag high as an actress.
Thank you.
Meeting up with your purpose and doing great things.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I want to start by zooming in on the work from your very recent past. I've been seeing a lot of buzz about the movie Misnomer.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about that movie.
Okay. Well, Misnomer is another feature film that I did, which is also based on the same cause, being albinism. However, it takes a different approach, which is on the killings of people with albinism for rituals. This is something that is practiced commonly in Southern and Eastern Africa. And it was shot in Malawi, and the producers and the director is Malawian American. Yeah.
And I think it's a very apt topic, especially for our time here and now.
Yeah.
I was listening to radio the other day, and they were interviewing two people who were involved in a pageant.
Yeah.
A unique one because it was for persons with albinism. And it was so interesting and fascinating, the things that they were talking about, which I'd never heard of. And they were busting myths. It was a very deep and engaging conversation. So I think it's a very good wave that we're on, where we're bringing all this information to the fore on various platforms, including film.
Yeah.
Now, you just come back from the States where, am I correct, you were attending the premiere of Misnomer?
Correction. So the film is not out yet. So we haven't premiered the film yet. Right now, it's still going through festivals. Recently got selected at the Africa International Film Festival, which will be taking place in Lagos. And also Sotambe Film Festival, which was here. And there was a screening for it here as well. So what the producers decided to do was have screenings. With film, you're able to screen wherever the original film is from. Yeah. So being US and Malawian, those were the main places where it was being screened. However, they were doing more of like a tour screening, which was in the US in different states. So Washington, DC, South Bend, Indiana, Atlanta, which was the one I attended, and Seattle. Those were the two that I attended. So it was basically just showing the community on the Africans. The idea was to try and promote African cinema and to engage more African filmmakers within the diaspora. Yeah. And it went very well. Okay,
excellent. And while you were there, that's when the buzz with Can You See Us, which you also acted in,
yes,
it kind of took over the world. It did well on Netflix, and the buzz was tangible. How did that catch you? How did you feel about the response?
It was a whirlwind. For me, I feel like God strategically positioned things. This is from my personal experience, because from looking at the time we shot the film, which was in 2020, and then I did another feature film, and both of them were sort of like being promoted at the same time. So for me, I'm just like, Lord, you at it again. So it was incredible. And being in the US and having the Zambian community support the film the way they did was absolutely incredible. And a lot of people that were watching the film, and they kept messaging and texting and talking about how it's doing in the ratings in the US as well. And when it got to the US top 10, I was just like, wow, This is absolutely incredible. But it's a pity because right now in the US, there's the whole, right now the actors are going on a strike. So it was it's a tricky time right now to sort of like try and push yourself, because that was the angle and the aim of being in the US, to do that. But we'll just wait.
Okay. It's interesting that, when something of that sort happens, a lot of times from the outside, when something's doing incredibly well, like the way it, Can You See Us did, some people might think that it's like a manufactured buzz. But in this case, you'd go to forums and you'd see people discussing it. You'd go to TikTok, people are, doing reviews. It touched people like on a very hearty level.
Yeah.
And in the movie, you played the role of Brenda, and that was a very strong character. You played it so well.
Thank you.
What I found amusing, it was like no glam, no frills. You just embodied the character, and you were playing like the protective aunt who, in a sense, was the guardian angel of the main character amidst all the turmoil, all the person's world collapsing and that kind of thing. How did you approach the role of Brenda?
Firstly, when I read the script, I was blown away by the script, and how it was so relatable in so many ways, especially for me. I always like to make reference to this, but it was very personal for me, this particular story, in the essence that the main character was a boy, and I am a mother of a boy child. So aside from that, we all cry for diversity, fighting for equality for our kids and all of that. And for me, having a child who's autistic and being in a setup where autism isn't recognized or really talked about, so it's frowned upon and looked down upon, I related to the character in that way. And I approached it from my motherly instincts. And that played out naturally because I was now connected to the lead character through that.
Yeah, I kind of can connect with that. There's an ad that I did not too long ago, which was nominated for Best International Voiceover Performance. Thank you. But it was an ad for the South African Guide Dogs Association. And so when I was reading the script, to personalize it, I had to look at my own situation because I've got an eye condition called keratoconus, which is a degenerative eye condition. So at some point I could be a guy in need of a guide dog, years down the line. And so for me, I had to tap into that in order to bring sincerity through.
Yeah.
So I can connect to what you're saying, that as a mother, you were able to empathize and sell yourself into this character because you could connect to that kind of situation.
Protective instinct, it was just automatically there because of that.
Yeah. I'm going to quote you. So this is now me reading, and I'll try and do it in Grace's voice. No, you should do it in voiceover voice. But you once said, I'm an actor, creative, and a storyteller. My dream has always been to tell more compelling stories on subjects that impact our lives, both negatively and positively. And I didn't want to just be an entertainer, but to have work reflect in a more meaningful and purposeful way. And I get the sense when I, see a quote like that you're locking into a deeper responsibility that's linked to your work.
Yes.
Am I tapping into the right set emotion? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I wrote that. It's kind of funny because I always go back to this just hit me actually earlier this year. But there was a time when I think it was just after I did Love Games, and I was approached by two producers, Owas Mwape and the late Mingeli. And they approached me, and Owas asked me one thing, and he says, where do you see yourself in the film industry? And the two things I said was, I want to become an international actor. But aside from that, I just don't want to be a famous actor. For me, I want my legacy to have meaning and purpose. And I want to tell more, which is in guideline to this. And not knowing that the way God has been positioning me and placing me trickling down the years. But even when you start from Love Games was a safe love campaign, which was also promoting a cause, and strategically, without me realizing that these things have already been manifesting in my life. And this is in alignment with what I already projected for my path. So when it came to doing Can You See Us, that was the first step. And ironically, after that, when I now got to do Misnomer, it was a situation where I was now promoting myself internationally, and I was speaking to international producers and sending them my reels and all of that. And that's how the Malawian producer saw it in the US and contacted the producer from Ghana and asked to audition me for this particular role. And when he told me the story, I'm just like, what? Is it also on? And I'm just like, this is amazing. And then from there, moving back to where you got that piece from that I talked on, that was coming from the other stuff that I'm doing, which is more my humanitarian work. This is in alignment with another filmmaker, Mfaweli. She's a brilliant actress as well, and she's a good friend of mine. And we connected because she had suffered depression, and she wanted to get into the space of doing more mental health work, but combining mental health with film, because we understand how compelling and powerful visuals have. And we were like, why not try and create short films in promoting mental health awareness? And when I shared my story with my journey of my son in link to promoting autism, which is also another bracket on its own for mental health, it sort of just insynced in what we were both discussing. And then she wanted me to play a part in her first short film, which was called Mindset, and which was a very powerful piece as well. So again, it brought me back to the same thing that I said many years ago. And I'm just like, thank you, Lord, for giving me these opportunities. I'm really grateful.
We're going to stay on that just a little bit, because off screen, that's kind of what's being linked to your journey. The activism is synonymous with your journey. You're involved with autism awareness, like you say, based on your son's situation. Tell us a bit more about that.
So I recently gained the strength to open my foundation, which is named Voice of Elisha, after my son. And this is to help spread more awareness on autism and the challenges that we face here in Africa, specifically Zambia. And the same, using the same format as we're doing with Mindset Change Creations in mental health space, but using visuals as a way of sharing the challenges that are there for parents and for children, again, who are not given the same opportunities that the rest of Zambians are given. There is so many disadvantages that our children face, and there are so many question marks, and you become really worried and scared because you start to think of your child's future and what are the possibilities of this new dawn that we have, that everybody's celebrating. But then for a mother like me, I'm thinking, how is my child included in this bracket when there are so many areas that have so many loopholes that are affecting his potential and affecting his future, being in the health and the medical sector. So that is basically what Voice of Elisha is to champion that. So I'm currently in the process of doing a documentary, which is on the same, raising awareness on these challenges. But it's basically just my journey as a mother and what challenges I have faced as a single mom, dealing with autism and a lot of the way people view the situation from afar. I mean, if you don't have a child that's autistic, what are the chances of you even bothering to do your research on it? I would say I was also the same because I was ignorant to it, but it had to take me to have a child with it for me to actually dive into it. And this is where now you start to see the importance of educating our children on people being different and people being uniquely having their own strengths in different areas. It may not be in a social area, which is basically what autism is. It's not only an intellectual disabilities, but people also treat it as your child is dumb, your child is a problem, and children tend to reject other children that are different from them. But it starts with us as parents, and how do we go about educating our children on people being different? So, I mean, you can't really blame parents for it. I was a parent that was like that when I just started. But for me now, being in this position and being a filmmaker, how can I use my voice to share?
Yeah.
No,
it's important. I mean, like I'm a dad as well. I've got two girls. Especially earlier on, we were hearing words because of some of the challenges that they were facing for the first time, which we hadn't heard of before, like apraxia, And even when you speak about autism in certain places like South Africa, the language for it is already there. You hear people talking about where on the spectrum their child is and so on. But I find that in Zambia, we are late to those conversations, and
very late.
So what you're doing then is important, because then it kind of puts a spotlight on it in a helping kind of way. Because a lot of people have children, siblings, relatives who have challenges in certain ways, or diagnosed, or have been diagnosed with certain conditions or whatever. But we're very ignorant around it, and so we don't know how to interface and approach. So I think it's very important that all of us kind of get on board in terms of getting the knowledge, so that we are as helpful as can be. I mean, I think I'm not dyslexic. Am I dyslexic? I haven't been diagnosed, but I'm battling to read these questions here, Grace. I could be dyslexic. No, I'm teasing. Now, okay, before I get to my last question, I wanted to find out from you, because in my situation, when I got into radio and entertainment, it wasn't something that was looked at with respect.
No.
So people would think, you're a DJ, or, you're a radio guy, and they kind of have a certain way that they frame you and what you can do. And so they didn't give us, forgive the pun, grace in terms of like how we kind of, interact and interface as guys who might have opinions that are deep, or might be well read. They just kind of thought, nah, it's just a DJ. You also are in a situation whereby you're an actor, and you in these roles that are being celebrated globally and so on. When you first entered the scene, and decided to become a creative and get into that space, was there pushback from family? Did they understand?
Boy, oh my
how much time you got, Chilu?
I mean, we could write a book on that. The journey has been really, it's been a whirlwind. I just thank God for my tenacity and my boldness to just pull through regardless and stay on what I believe, which is never give up on your dreams. But my journey, I was similar as well. My dad wasn't for the idea of me pursuing arts. So I graduated in South Africa, and I remember in my last year, my speech and drama teacher was the one. Her voice still rings in my head on my bad days, the days where I give up and I'm just like, you know what? I'm throwing in the towel. I am done. And her voice always rings, because when I was trying to figure out which direction I wanted to take, but I always knew for some reason that entertainment was always going to be the area that I was going to venture into. Although at the time, dance was my primary focus. And then again, I tried to accompany it with music, because I started doing voice training. But the thing with voice training it was also helpful for theater. So the fact that I was in the drama, I was part of the drama school in high school. My speech and drama teacher was the one who was just like, Grace, so what are you doing after you graduate? So I'm still thinking about it, but I am considering acting. I want to go to AFTA. I've applied, and I actually applied to AFTA, and I was accepted into AFTA, and my dad shut it down and said no. So to show my seriousness, I would literally get on the bus and go to the Johannesburg Civic Theatre, since I was told that I could not go to AFTA. It was too expensive, and I'm just like, you're just not going to give me that chance, but it's fine. But I'll show you I'm very serious. And at the time, I was waiting to get into cosmetology school, and I started acting classes at the Johannesburg Civic Theatre. And things didn't work out that year. A lot of things changed, and I moved back home to Zambia, and that was where the dream kind of got shot. Because now I'm just like, where to begin from here? Now where do we go from here? The dream has to die at this point. Long story short, I started work, and then one of my friends who I spoke to about my dream, and very few people knew that I wanted to pursue acting and all of that. I think it was only Salma that knew at the time. And my friend said before I came to Zambia, they had done One Love Kwasila. So they're like, oh no, you should follow the company that did that. And on Facebook. So that's how I decided to follow Media 365. And then they had an opening. And I think at the time I was staying within Rhodespark, and the offices were in Rhodespark at the time. So my friend told me that, apparently they are holding auditions for something. And that's how I went. So I did the auditions, and I was picked for a supporting lead. And I've been blessed enough. I've never done background work ever. So thank God for that. But yeah, so that's when I got to meet Fred. He was one of the people that were there, Fred Peary, who were auditioning me. And that was my first. And I thought from here, things are just going to take off, not knowing the history that is there and where the Zambian film industry was at that particular time. But we were naive, and we still went ahead and did it, and it didn't go anywhere. And I remember, I think it showed on Movie TV, if I'm not mistaken, and then they put it on YouTube. But again, it was in promotion with Ministry of Justice. So it was a 5-part mini-series. It was meant to be a feature, but then they broke it down into a 5-part mini-series, which was fighting the anti-corruption cause and all of that. And after that, I think because they had me in their database, that's how they called me now. It was back to 8 to 5 work from there, back to 8 to 5. Then Love Games came, and that's how I was called for Love Games to audition. And then I did the audition and I got the part. Again, after Love Games got done, things are going to take off now. Same thing. The dream was on hold, and it was very 8 to
5 again after that.
Yes, it was very frustrating. Yeah. It was so frustrating to a point where I'm just like, I don't think this is in the cards for me. And I think from there, that's when I find it, because initially before all of this, I did want to do cosmetology, and I wanted to always do cabin crew because I just wanted to travel and fly. So this time now I was like, okay, maybe let me go back and do that. So that is when I decided to do cabin crew training. And after we got done with cabin crew training, we're like, oh no, the national airline is going to be coming. I was so excited, thinking, now things are going to take off. And still in my head, this is going to be my opportunity to keep sending my work to different, like whichever country we'll be going to, I'll need to find out. That was the mindset I had. Yeah. And then again, halt, the national airline did not open. So it was now trying to find work. It was challenging finding work. Especially here, it was really, really hard. Until I got into another 8 to 5, and this time I was working for a financial service company in customer service. And then I got I was now going to work with a different airline. I think that was the time FastJet was coming to Zambia, and I went for the interviews for that. And I was picked, and they offered me a really good package. But around the same time is when Zambezi Magic came to Zambia. And I got an opportunity to sit down with the channel head at the time, which was Zeno, and he was meeting talent in Zambia. And when we had the conversation, and I was complaining about the challenges it has been for me as an actor and trying to pursue my career here and all of the challenges that we've had. So he's like, oh no, there's a show that's coming up, Fever. So you should go and audition. And funny enough, I was actually shortlisted for Fever, and I didn't know. So I went there, and they're like, we've been trying to look for your number, actually. So I'm like, okay. I actually this was before the audition date. I called Julian, and then I got to speak. Yes. And then he told me to come through for the auditions. And when I saw Becky, then they was like, oh no, we actually had her on our list for this specific character, which was the Mwaka character. And when that happened, I was very prepared to not quit my job. And I'm like, I'm not quitting my job, because at this point now, survival mode kicked in. The dream of just pursuing art was just now like, no, it was a chokehold financially. Like, no, we need to be a bit more smart. Yeah. So when they called me and told me I got the part, and then they're telling me, no, your character is a supporting lead, but it's very centered, and we would need you to be on set more often than just weekends. Because I'm like, oh, no, I can work and everything, but I'm only available on weekends. Yeah. And
Terms and conditions apply.
Yes. And then Becky's like, Grace, we kind of need you full time. We cannot. And I'm just like, I can't. There is just no way I am quitting my job. Like the package you people are going to offer me will not compensate for. That's my livelihood. There's no way. And they're like, no, we really need you for this project. Please think about it and what and what and what. I'm like, okay, we'll see. I'll think about it. That night I could not sleep and I had to speak to my dad's sister, my aunt, and I gave her a call and I'm like, Auntie, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place because I have these two opportunities and one is offering me that time, how much was fast? That was just for the training. Yeah. At that time, they were offering me, I think, $80
per day
for the training. Nice. And this was like in 2015. And this was training. This was not going to be my final package.
That was just like,
this is just for the training for the 2 weeks and I'll be paid while doing training. And now and this was before we discussed finances with Fever. And my aunt is just like, truth be told, Grace, very few people are actually brave enough to pursue their dreams. So it's really up to you to make that decision. But you will always never know what the future would hold if you gave up on your dream. And for me, I think I already knew what I wanted to do, but I kind of just needed that extra nudge to say it's okay if you're going to make that bad decision to pursue your love. Which I did. And that's how I turned down FastJet. And FastJet didn't even go far. It lasted 1 year in Zambia and that was it. But so did the career as well. It took ages. But it gave me great opportunities from this point because now I had a different perspective. Because at first when I ventured in, it was just acting. I never saw myself doing anything else aside from acting. But after doing Fever and the way I was so involved, I really like to work with I'm very team spirited. And whenever there are any loopholes or challenges that I'm always eager to help and assist in whichever area. So I started finding myself, even like when we were going through scripts and everything, and we missed a scene or the last scene that was shot or something with wardrobe was a bit off. And I'm like, but I wore this. And
you're so for continuity.
Yes. And Becky started to identify these other strengths in me. And she's like, Grace, have you ever considered anything else beyond acting? And I'm like, no, for me, it's just Hollywood, and that's where I see myself, Oscar award-winning actress. And that's just the dream, just acting. And she's like, you have other strengths. You really should explore it. And that is where the producing part came in. And I also decided to go to SA. An opportunity came for me. And that was the time Ring of Lies just came to SA and they were doing their first season. And I had the opportunity of shadowing on that project just after we did Fever. Unfortunately, Fever took like a break for 2 years and everything was just on hold. But then from there, I got to do Kumwesu as well, which was hosting, my first time hosting, and other just different opportunities. And I was now exploring different avenues of entertainment. And that gave me a broader perspective of, okay, maybe you should not be so rigid and just focus in this area. There are various ways you can explore. And that was now where I made the sole decision to just be in entertainment at that point, because I'm like, it's either now or never. There's no way you can give it 30, 40% and expect to achieve the dream. Yeah. The goal is hard. And for you to make it internationally, there's so much work that you have to do and there's so much you have to learn. How are you going to learn it if you are now focusing on an 8 to 5 job? It's going to be very difficult for you to juggle the two and invest your time to actually really explore this industry. And that's where I made that decision. And I'm so grateful I did make that choice.
Before I ask you my last question, I think it's important that I, based on what you're saying, share like a little story. I'll make it quick. But there's a gentleman who's also a movie producer, and I think he's originally from Malawi. So what had happened is he used to be very good at sourcing funding for his movies. Mm-hmm. He'd secure funding from all sorts of institutions. And after a while, he realized, like, that's actually my strength, sourcing funding. And so then he created an investment company where now movies was like a small M, because now he'd secure funding for housing projects and all sorts of other things,
Yeah.
Because at some point the realization just hit him that this is actually a different strength that I'm sleeping on, So yeah, there are other. I'm impressed with what you're saying because besides acting, same with voiceover. Guys will think if I can get in there as a voiceover artist, then I'll make it. But there are other areas on the peripheries of the industry where you might be more suited.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's my last question, Grace. You've traveled a lot now. You've kind of seen what other movie industries in other countries are doing. What's your hope or what's your vision regarding the movie industry here, the Zambian movie industry?
First of all, the first thing that I hope for is us to have one voice. And I think that's the biggest chokehold that we actually have as film industry, focusing on the film industry. The fact that we don't have one voice is hindering a lot of things that need to be put in place. Things like policy making, things like guilds, for example. We cannot have guilds if we're not going to have one voice. It has to take us to put a stand and say no to certain things, even if we're going to be labeled as difficult, which I am, labeled as difficult, problematic, but all you want is professionalism. When you spend so much time investing in your craft, people don't know what it takes. Everyone thinks it's such a walk in the park to get in front of the camera and work. They really do not understand the mental strain that it takes you through and the emotional damage it can do to an individual. There's so much that is involved in preparation as actors. Those that take their craft seriously know what it takes to build character, embody a character, and the journey that it takes for you to get invested into that particular role. And with all of that, professionalism is something that we do lack. I mean, there's been so much growth within our sector, but this area is still a glitch and it's still a problem. And the fact that it's a problem, when I see how things are done internationally, it always makes me think, how do people think they're going to grow if we are fighting about this? Like, we shouldn't even be fighting over this, This is something that should be clear as day. I mean, small things like contract agreements and the smallest things of just treating somebody fairly is a problem. It's different when you get to a point of demand and now your demand is coming from a place of experience. That is a different conversation. But just common practices of professionalism that we lack in terms of timekeeping. There's just all these small like all of those have a huge impact in the growth of because it now shows the essence, which is the conversation we had just earlier. How people approach this industry it's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's not taken seriously. And how do we expect the corporate world to take us seriously and for them to invest in us if we ourselves don't take it seriously? So having said that, those would be the two key factors: having one voice, professionalism. The other area is upcoming actors. A lot of people now are very excited because we've been given great opportunities, especially with Zambezi Magic being on the scene, which is great for our industry. But another aspect that people seem to forget is film and television are two different entities. They're not the same. So us saying we have an industry going, our film industry is still growing. The fact that investors and distributing companies or financial investment is not being looked at in Zambia is because of the numbers that are coming from Zambia. So if they're going to look at our industry and say how many films are being produced in Zambia, we don't really have a lot of films that are coming out of Zambia. So we're here glorifying and celebrating that we have a television industry and thinking that it's in the same bracket as it's not. So it's now understanding the business side of things and creating opportunities for markets like that will educate us more. I think then we'll be in a better position. But I like the fact that Sotambe Film Festival put an initiative to start. I think she merged with a Kenyan Kenyan distributor, and they merged to create a business platform which gives now an opportunity for investment and for distribution opportunities to take place. So where producers can gather and meet and see directors as well, and meet with different people from different spaces in the world and give us an opportunity. So that is the first step. But I still say beyond that, as long as the groundwork being policy making, guilds are not in place, we're going to keep going in circles. Yeah.
Grace, thank you so much for your time. I wish you well. May you keep flying the flag high, and all the best with your foundation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.